Hello again, Konkrethik TV. We are happy to talk today with Tim Schuster. He is the CEO of Humanizing Technologies. We know each other since a few years.
You're
I
right.
met Tim as an expert for
Humanoid robots and robots in general.
robots in general, and also Pepper. We worked also a
Sure.
little bit with Pepper, but Pepper is of course just one robot. And as I understood now, you are developing a cloud space for robots, so that different robots can have access to that. Maybe you just say two sentences about the technology.
Of course, thanks a lot. You know, the challenge is for all robot vendors and manufacturers is to have kind of a brain, an AI brain, which enables other services which are developing in the world. And you know, this topic AI is pretty big, and a lot of different type of stuff is developing. And the thing is, you know, how to bring everything together that each robot can participate of it. And this is a challenge, and we want to create a solution for this challenge.
Very good. But we talk about concretics, means we talk about practice.
Yes.
Because we deeply believe through our future psychology that the times of theory are at an end, because everything is getting to be new, more new than ever before, more exponential growth than ever before. That means we have to learn to deal with new things.
Definitely.
And we are not prepared for that. Our brain, our emotionality, and concretics means you have to find a solution for yourself in everything. So, of course, you are not working just with Pepper, but Pepper was a great experience. He is very sympathetic.
Sure.
What do you? How do you see, for example, Pepper in the year 2030? What will be his capacity? What can Pepper do for a company, for a person?
That's good. That's a good point. So 30 means 11 years ahead from now on.
Yes.
Of course, in 11 years, I guess everyone can imagine how much can happen within this time, even spoken technically.
Nobody can.
Nobody really.
I mean,
can.
that's as a future psychologist, that's exactly our experience. You know,
Yeah.
what we do if we think about 2030, we think ahead on the basis of what we know.
Yeah.
And that's already boring, sleepy, and too slow. you
That's
know.
right. Yeah.
We don't know exactly how to think exponential. So be free to.
Well, we just can, let me say, establish a picture in our minds what we might probably think it could happen at later stage. And we all have science fiction in our minds due to films and movies and everything like that. So everyone has a kind of sense for its own future out of its own perspective. And if it comes to robots, well, there will be a lot of huge improvements for the future. Of course, technically first, and the thing is, now in 2019, the robot, if we talk about robots, they are pretty basic. So it's comparable to 1-2 years child's, mostly. So the humanoid robots, and especially the robots for public places. I don't talk about industrial robots which are in a factory and doing just the same task back and forth. This is usually more or less an easy task, but in a complex environment, in a social environment, in public places where you have to process every influence, so like a human is doing, every sound, everything you recognize. This is the key task, to get this into a technology, to get a technology understand, to handle all kind of senses. What we have as humans, senses. This is the key task, and within the next 11 years, I'm pretty sure that this will improve massively, because we can the machines will get the ability to recognize, for instance, each object. That is a book. A machine does not, from the scratch on, know this is a book, but in the future it will be like a library, like a brain which is accessible for every kind of robot, like an open source library where all objects, mostly probably all objects on the world, will be within that, and so a machine can easily recognize in what kind objects around is. This is relevant to then go to the next step. What should I do with the object? Should I grab it? Should I bring it to that? everything what is for us as human pretty normal and automatic, you have to bring it into the machines. And the thing is, and this was even maybe a challenge for Pepper, you know, then a robot came to the market like Pepper's, looking super humanoid, and the people, so the society in general, due to all the science fiction ideas they had, they were expecting that the robot bring all these capabilities out of the box
But
with
he
it.
couldn't,
No, of course not,
But
because
but
all
they love him.
it's just a design. It's just a computer design. You know, it's a computer at the end, a robot, and with a lot of technique. But of course, all these human behaviors are not included. And this is even why we are saying humanizing technologies. This is the key way for the next future. First of all, to bring humanity, so human capabilities, behaviors into the technology. This is a journey over decades. It's not just
Of
for a period of time.
But is it possible that you described the cloud consciousness in which every robot can find access?
You know,
But is it possible that robots still develop personality,
of course,
identity?
they have to, because a robot making for general life purpose is pretty complex, but robots specifically for specific tasks are pretty easy. So for instance, I guess we both talked about the psychologist. Maybe a robot which might become just a psychologist for the future. Imagine in 10 years you have like in the church, how was it called, where you go there and talk about your Beichtstuhl, about your sins. You know, imagine something like that a robot will handle with, so that the people can go to a robot and talk about their problems in general, about their feelings, that they are alone and something like that. And I guess there will be a huge demand for that. But then the robot has just specifically to respond on that, but nothing about other things in life. So there will be personas, like you said, characteristics for robots. And the cloud thing, what you mentioned, is just the technique infrastructure, because how should a robot get these characters or these behaviors? It has to come out of a cloud. For instance, now with the topic of 5G is ability to bring this to the robots. And somewhere there has to be a centralized storage where everything is located and everything provided through the robots. And this is
But
even
the
a cloud thing.
centralization of consciousness means that the whole IoT world will be always very flexible. I mean the opposite. In danger, because really something can happen. You know?
You mean in terms
of
if the
water burning possibilities?
Yeah.
You know, they are really
Sure.
we can affect them in a very
sure, they will
negative way.
They will not be a standalone. So they need always to be connected to it. And if the connections got lost,
is it
then
possible
they will
that a
be-
robot can be a standalone version?
No, it's not in 11 years. Not with all this consciousness what we consider a robot should have, because for this, you even technically spoken, sorry for that, but for this you need all the capabilities of technique on the robot itself, so standalone in the robot, and on this little kind of space, all the performance, all the computing power, whatever I guess it's not possible to bring it in one.
But don't you
specific
think with quantum computing, with nanotechnology, something like this? I mean, see our brain.
But in 11 years, I'm not sure if it's on that point.
Then it's later.
Maybe later, of course. At a specific point, they will be even fully autonomous, working on their own, and maybe. But this is this is very interesting, because at the end, you know, and this is really essential, a human should have the ability to control a robot. So this is the other claim what we are bringing. This is what we mean with bringing humans into the technology. Besides to the humanity, even humans. In my opinion, in my personal opinion, at the very last end, a human has to take the responsibility and care and even the control about the robots. At the very last end, you know, because the fully autonomous behavior might be going out of our
But if I listen
control.
to you, that's very realistic.
Yeah.
I know that you are also very much ethics
Sure.
oriented. But if I talk to people in Silicon Valley, they sell something. They tell us something totally different.
They sell us something.
Okay, that was Freud is always with us. singularity.
Yeah, sure.
You know, there are single brains who can change everything very soon. But for example, what can a little robot like Pepper give to my situation at home with my 12-year-old son in 2030? What is his
purpose?
And what is his contribution to our personal life, for example?
As a companion, as part of a family member, as a companion which has a few tasks to do, for instance.
But he can be the living internet. He can get out everything. I can ask him everything.
Yes.
I can ask him even very complicated questions.
And this will.
He can order. Yes. He is an assistant.
Yes, he's an assistant. He's a personal life assistant. He's another next thing what makes the us more convenient. Like Alexa, for instance, what is nowadays in 2019 is pretty popular. It's also just a machine which you're speaking to, and something happen. So same goes then for robots, with a few more abilities, with more physical abilities. For instance, maybe taking out glasses of the or handling your kitchen or something like that. So with physical
even
tasks,
cooking,
even maybe it's a bit complex, but it's an ability. On the one thing, you have an object which you can talk to, which can even answers your questions, which will even control your smart home at the end. So you say, hey, volume up the music or something like that. It will everything.
But why should we be afraid? I mean, people are afraid that robots are taking away jobs. We are even afraid if you see a massive industrial robot, even physically, that has his own appearance. So what you just said is I don't see too much danger, and because you said a consciousness of a robot will be always depending on the programmation and on programming. So, but
everything
we heard a lot from various future philosophers, or Ray Kurzweil or others, that they can develop independently, that a consciousness can develop without us. I mean, this is something.
This is, and it will happen. It might happen. I'm sure about that this will happen, but. Does this come to public life? Is the other question. Does this come to public life within the next 11 years? And even in what kind of physical form? Robots are at the end just a physical form for something software programmed at the end. The robots are always just to complain on because they're the physical presence, but at the end, to be honest, it's just some other software like, it could also be a virtual avatar, and then suddenly it's not really a robot, it's the AI. I'm absolutely convinced, like you said, about the singularity, especially in specific cases. It might happen that it gets autonomous. I deeply believe it's a long way.
But as long we walk into virtual realities, I think this will become more and more possible. I personally believe that within 10 years or 15, most of us will live partly in virtual realities.
Yes, I'm sure.
But that for me means that a robot, unless they have an industrial use, they are not necessary anymore. The assistant will be virtual. The assistant will be in my head or in my glasses. Don't you think so?
Yes. It's a combination of everything. I don't, yes, I'm with you. We will have a lot of virtual assistants around you. You need to handle them, but you also have physical assistants around you, and robots are more physical assistants. Physical assistance which makes us the life easier, even if you're not, for instance, if you're all the day in your VR glass and sitting in your chair just because you're in a second life, someone has to care about your environment around you to make, and then a robot might become part of this task.
You said just physical. We worked with your Pepper, and we made the experience on the psychological level that even in Germany, elder people are getting very fast used to the support of a robot or of Pepper, because it's an emotional thing. And
that's the point.
And we find out
That's the
we
point.
found out that people, after 2, 3, 4 times talking to Pepper, that they are building a very strong relationship, because they have respect in a way, because somehow it's technical, but to open up yourself is something what is really positive. I think it's also a reward for the brain. It's a dopamine thing, and on the other side, it shows us that people are totally mistrusting others more and more. So that even elder people think, instead of listening to the doctor or to the nurse who just comes for 70 seconds a day, but I can talk to Pepper 1 hour, that this is really changing something. But for me, then it's self-healing, because I trust I have time, and I can use my own inner consciousness.
What is the difference between the human and the robot? The robot for nowadays is not autonomous. So maybe to come to the question, maybe this is why the society and the people respect it or accept it that much and create trust to it, because they know they can control the robot and turn it on and off whenever they like, while they cannot control a human, and they cannot control what a human should do with the information they talk to them. So, but later, in your opinion, if a robot even becomes that kind of independent like a human today, would they trust as well to a robot like nowadays? I'm not sure.
My experience within these interviews is that people totally forget the technical circumstances of a robot. They are not thinking they could do something bad. They really trust, and they don't think about that they are not autonomously. But from a human being, they expect always the possibility of something bad. Always, even if they trust, So, last question. I mean, it is impossible to have a last question. I think an interview today should last at least 30, 40 years. But otherwise you can't create something constructive. But again, how much have you changed as a person, a young person, who is very early in contact with the new technology within the last 3 years?
Oh, that's a good question. My influence on the society in general, on me personally.
You have always to do with new things.
Of course. That's a good question actually. Let me think that through. Maybe it's an advantage to participate in every kind of new technology or having the overview. On the other hand, it also gets you in the position to take care about yourself, about your reputation, because you can easily, nowadays it's a pretty complex world due to all these technology possibilities around you, and even the environment you have. Me personally, of course, I'm mostly focusing on all the economical stuff around my company and around my employees and what might be good for us or a threat for us, or what is a dynamic. It has so many possibilities, but to choose what way to go is even more complex. To make a decision gets even more complex nowadays, maybe than years before, because you have so many opportunities and you don't know really what is the right way and what are the consequences out of that. This is an advantage that you have the possibilities, and a disadvantage to take the decisions and to hopefully take the right decisions. So it's ambivalent, so like a bit.
I think that's the key word, ambivalence, because everything has its own contradiction in these days. And I think you described it pretty well. It's the end of theory,
Yeah, definitely.
There are much more, millions, billions of options. And then to make a standardized theory is just boring. So we live in the age of practice,
Definitely.
and of exponential practice.
Definitely.
But for the moment, thank you very much, Tim.
Yeah.
Thank you for today.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
a lot.